We're learning some revealing details from the secret FBI file on Steve Jobs,
including what his friends and co-workers really thought of Apple's CEO. Some of it not exactly so nice. Bob Orr is outside FBI headquarters in Washington this morning with more on what was in those files. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Erica and Charlie. Well, the file's being released under the Freedom of Information Act, and it gives us new insights into the personality of Apple founder Steve Jobs. Across the board, people thought he was a genius, but many also found he could be stubborn and demanding. One worker at Apple Computer called Jobs a deceptive individual who is not completely forthright and honest. Another colleague defended Jobs, saying he was a man of high moral character and integrity. But multiple friends and associates warned he could be abrasive and had a tendency to distort reality in order to achieve his goals. The comments come from a 191-page file the FBI compiled in 1991. Agents were conducting a background check after President George H.W. Bush appointed Jobs to the President's Export Council. The 24+ people interviewed universally said Jobs, while not perfect, was a worthy presidential advisor. But one coworker cynically noted, honesty and integrity are not required qualities to hold such a position. The FBI investigation revealed there were troubles in his personal life. One colleague said Jobs initially mistreated a daughter he had out of wedlock by failing to support her, but added recently Mr. Jobs has been more supportive. He was a C+ high school student with a 2.65 grade point average. And Jobs admitted to the FBI that he was a casual drug user in the early 70s and experimented with marijuana, hashish, and LSD. But Jobs assured agents he never sold any drugs and was never convicted of a crime. The file, though, does reveal Jobs was the target of extortion. These handwritten notes were made by the FBI in 1985 after someone phoned in a bomb threat targeting Jobs and Apple. The caller, who demanded $1 million, was never paid and never found. We also found out that Jobs spent some time working with the government, we think on satellite-related programs. In fact, in 1988, for 2 years, he had a top-secret clearance. That clearance was taken away in 1990 when his work was done. Now, we've been asked if Jobs knew he had a file. That's not at all clear, but he must have had a hint because he cooperated with that background investigation. He was interviewed in 1991.
Bob, thanks so much. Adam Lashinsky is a senior editor at large for Fortune magazine. His book, Inside Apple, America's Most Admired and Secretive Company, really works. It is hitting the New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller list this weekend. Good morning.
Good morning.
Does this fit the profile of Steve Jobs that you know? Any surprises?
It fits him absolutely. The surprise is how absolutely consistent this man was. When this background check happened in 1991, he was in between his stints at Apple. He was an important person, but not really as important as he had been or as important as he would become. My favorite part of this, Charlie, is that he actually kept the FBI waiting for 3 weeks. He told them he was too busy to do an interview. And remember, this was not when he was at Apple.
And he didn't have a choice not to do the interview if he wanted the job.
Yeah, but he was in no hurry to accommodate the FBI. It's hard to fathom a normal person telling the FBI, yeah, sure, I'll sit for the interview, but I'm kind of busy right now.
Adam, you mentioned that there weren't really any surprises here. One of the things that sticks out is these people who had said he could distort reality a lot. Is that something that you had found?
Well, sure. Jobs' reality distortion field was famous in his ability to bend people into his way of thinking, to convince the people working for him that they could do something that they didn't think was possible. But he also pushed the limits in his business dealings, and he was famous for this over the many years, that he would tell people what he wanted them to know, and it's behavior that he would do at Apple and that is common at Apple as well. Apple creates its own reality. That's part of their genius as a marketing company, but also part of the rough side of how they do business.
One thing that's here is a criticism about his behavior with his daughter, but that's also a place where he came back together with her before he died.
That's right. His first child was an illegitimate child, and he didn't want to have anything to do with her at first. And he came around as he got older, and in fact, in his later years, he was quite close with her and very supportive of her. But this was an example of him as a young, immature man not wanting to be involved.
What's interesting is that it probably the same things that made him difficult are what made him a genius.
there's no question. He was a visionary. He was a narcissist. He wanted to do things his way, and he really wasn't interested in other people's way. And that's sort of textbook definition of a creative genius who's going to do something that the rest of us just can't see. And this is a company that does things that the rest of us can't see because his DNA is in that company.
Adam Lashinsky, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.